At this moment in hockey history, the Nashville Predators currently find themselves in 7th place in the Central Division with 7 games played. Every single team in the Central Division has played 6 or 7 games now, so everything is starting to even out. The Nashville Predators hold a record of 3-4. That is good for 6 total points. They find themselves 6 points behind the Colorado Avalanche. To recap the division standings at this moment, the Colorado Avalanche have suffered their first regular season loss. They are now 6-1 on the season, but lead the Central Division with 12 points. The Dallas Stars just behind them with 9. Then Winnipeg with 8. St. Louis with 7. Minnesota also with 7. Arizona with 6. Nashville with 6. And the Chicago Blackhawks are in the 8th and final spot of the cellar of the Central with just 4 points on the season. They have a record of 2-5. Now, the Nashville Predators' next game will take place on home ice against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Preds are 2-2 on home ice. They've scored 20 goals on the season. They've given up 19 against. And once they wrap up this first of 2 regular season meetings against the Toronto Maple Leafs, it will be the first time this season that the Nashville Predators have had a reoccurring opponent. Through the first 8 games of the season, it has been standalone games and no rematches, but that changes dramatically when the Nashville Predators head out of town on the CMA road trip. Tuesday in Vancouver, Thursday in Seattle, Saturday in Edmonton. All 3 of those are rematch games of opponents the Preds have faced off to start the season. And then in Calgary on the 7th of November and Winnipeg to wrap up the road trip on the 9th of November. So the Nashville Predators, once they wrap up this game on Saturday night, are headed out for a long road trip. We're used to it. It happens every year at this time, and it's usually beneficial for the team and the organization. A good opportunity for them to gain some chemistry, gel, and come together. And we usually see the Preds see a nice uptick coming out of this road trip. Not always on the road trip, but usually we do see an uptick coming out of the road trip. Now, I mentioned it's one of 2 regular season meetings between the Preds and the Leafs. That will take place, the second one, on 12/9, December the 9th. Nashville will be in Toronto for the first and only time of this season. Now, the Maple Leafs, let's talk about them for just a second. On the regular season, they are 5-2. They have 10 points. That's good for 3rd in the Atlantic Division. On the road, and this is key because that's where they're playing their next game, they are 2-1 on the season. They've scored 27 goals for. They've given up 21 against. It's a +6 goal differential. And in the most recent action, let's go back 5 games. We don't need to talk about all 7. Let's go back to the 16th. To get a good sample size, I like to go back 5 games. On the 16th of October, it was a 4-1 loss versus Chicago. On the 19th of October, a 3-1 loss at Florida. And then the Leafs turned things around pretty quickly after that 2-game slide. On the 21st of October, a 4-3 overtime win in Tampa Bay. Always a difficult place to go and play. On the 24th of October, a 4-1 win at Washington. And most recently, on the 26th of October, a 4-1 win at Dallas. Again, another very difficult building to go and secure a victory in. And it was Woll getting the victory. 31 out of 32, picks up the W in that one for the Leafs. Now, when you talk about the NHL rankings and matchups between these 2 teams, it's early in the season, but the numbers are really starting to populate, and there's a lot more data than you might think. So let's talk about it. Goals for 2.86 for the Nashville Predators is 19th rated in the NHL, while 3.71, and 3.71 is a very impressive number, but it's only 10th at this point in the NHL. But if they maintain 3.71 throughout the season, they're going to be in a very good place. Goals against average, Nashville Predators ranked 10th at 2.71 given up, while the Leafs are giving up 3 even per game. That is good for 13th overall in the NHL. This is a category I find very interesting between these 2 teams because both of them are piling up the shots on goal this season. For the Nashville Predators, 32.1 shots on goal per game is good for 9th best in the league, and that is a big turnaround from what the Predators did all of last year, and frankly, in recent seasons. Their shots on goal had been just lagging behind much of the league. Now, on the other side of the ledger, the Toronto Maple Leafs are generating 33.4 shots on goal per game. That is 6th best in the NHL. So looking forward to a lot of shots on goal in this game. Shots against, the Nashville Predators are 7th in the league, 28.1 per game, while Toronto's giving up 30.3 per game. That is 16th overall. Special teams, this is where the Nashville Predators need to make their biggest change, their biggest climb, and certainly their biggest improvements as the season goes along. Listen, the power play has converted a couple of times as of late, so that makes the numbers look a little bit better. 20.7% conversion rate is 14th best in the NHL, or the raw data works out to 6 of 29 for Nashville. But, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs can roll out an incredible power play unit, and they are currently rated 4th in the NHL, 33.3%, 8 conversions on 24 attempts. And the early games for the Nashville Predators this season, way too many power play opportunities against very professional power play offensive-minded teams. do not fall into that trap against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They will make you pay. I'm telling you now, 1 out of 3 is a guarantee. And if you give them 6, they're going to score 2, and it's going to be tough to beat them if you're giving up a bunch of extra goals. On the penalty kill, the Maple Leafs find themselves in 17th place in the NHL. 77.3% is their kill rate. They have given up 5 power play goals against on the season. For the Nashville Predators, 31st rated penalty kill in the league. 7 power play goals against, only a 68.2% kill rate. That's what I mentioned right there. Don't play into that trap with the Toronto Maple Leafs. As a matter of fact, you can't play into that trap with any good NHL team, and the Leafs are certainly a very good team. Something that will influence the game is the injury report. Luke Schenn still listed as out on IR, potentially 3 to 5 weeks. I've updated the time frame based on a week going by now since the original time frame was put out. And Glass still listed as out with no time frame for return, and that's important. Need to know how long he's going to be out of the lineup because the Preds right now are doing okay, but Glass really is a big component down the middle for this Predators lineup. When it comes to the individual statistics, every team in the NHL can roll out a high-quality caliber of offensive players, and there is absolutely no shortage of them on the Leafs side of the ledger. As a matter of fact, the top 5 scorers on the Toronto Maple Leafs would all be the leading scorer for the Nashville Predators. Let's start on the visiting Maple Leaf side of things. Nylander, 5 goals, 6 assists on the season for 11 points. Tavares, 4 and 7 for 11. Matthews, 7 goals. That leads the team with 2 assists added to that is 9 points. Riley, 2 and 5 for 7. And Marner, 2 and 4 for 6. And let's face it, for the Nashville Predators, all of these players are a threat to score and to take over a game at, frankly, any time, and they have done so against the Predators team in the past. What has been a revelation for this Maple Leafs team is what has been such a problem in the past. Woll is becoming an obvious choice for starter. The early part of the season, just incredible. 3-1 record, a .961 save percentage, 1.33 goals against average. And again, in the most recent game on this road trip, went into Dallas, only gave up 1 goal, 31 out of 32. So Woll is definitely an emerging star for the Maple Leafs in net. He appears very much to be the real deal. On the other side of the ledger is very much the Nashville Predators' real deal, the most important player on the team, and he gives them a chance to win every night. He started all 7 games on the season. I have no reason to believe he's not going to start. Game 8, UC Saros is 3 and 4 on the year with a .910 save percentage, a 2.58 goals against average, and 1 shutout. When the team plays really good in front of UC Saros and his workload isn't extremely hard, he excels and he can give the Predators an opportunity to win. This is a tough game for the Preds. They've had a lot of tough opponents early in the season. They faced off in Tampa against the Lightning. They faced off in Boston against the Bruins, in New York against the Rangers, and on home ice, they've already had the Edmonton Oilers, the Seattle Kraken, and now the Maple Leafs. If it wasn't for that one San Jose Sharks game, this would be a murderer's row. And by the way, the Sharks are quite possibly the worst team, not only this season, last season, but they're quite possibly the worst team that we have seen in a long time. We'll wait till we have a reason to be talking about that a little bit more. But that's got you all set up for the Nashville Predators and the Toronto Maple Leafs at Bridgestone Arena on a Saturday night in Smashville. Always fun. See the Leafs come to town. I know their fan base has been rolling into town since Thursday. I saw plenty of Leafs jerseys and shirts and already down around the Broadway area when I was down there at Bridgestone Arena. So looking forward to this weekend's game and very much excited about breaking it down, recapping it, and getting back in the bunker and talking about it. Speaking of recaps and breakdowns, while I work on cleaning the studio from the full press crew being here, why don't we go to this Rebirth Sports full game recap of the Nashville Predators' last game? It was, in fact, the Nashville Predators against the Vancouver Canucks at Bridgestone Arena.